Starting recording live. We are good. So welcome to the SUSE QA Tools workshop. Today is first workshop session of a week, of a month, and that means we will do the usual roadmap discussion or presentation and discussion. So the last one we did was in September, on the 1st of September. Now we have the 6th of October. I'm mentioning that because I want to calculate roughly on how far we want to look back. So in our team wiki page, which is progress.openSUSE.org/project/QA wiki tools, there we describe how we work. From there, you can find all our backlog links. You might see that actually that has extended a bit. Now we have actually 6 links here. I hope that's not getting too messy, so not too much. Let's start with what we had been working on. I'm using the query to show what we have closed within the last time period, but not 60 days, but rather something like 35 days, and then we should have a good overview. So we had a busy month. You already see that it was a bit like red on the top. In 35 days, we achieved 80 tickets. So that's a bit above our average, which is likely a sign. But actually, I can also tell you, sadly, we have, for example, one person joining, Dominik Heidler joining, and Marius Kittler was still helping and contributing here before switching on a squad rotation to the kernel squad. And plus people had been returning from vacation or absences, so that's good. We had been working on infrastructure task and reactive work. We had been working on a fair share of regression, crashes, and such, support ticket, and also feature requests. Let me start with feature requests. There are just 5 OpenQA, like pure OpenQA feature requests, and one is actually also not a real technical feature, but rather a consequence of an issue that we have found. There was one issue which we'll also mention in the infrastructure-related work, is that the OpenQA instance of OpenQA refused to assign and execute jobs, even though there was a very big schedule. So that was a really interesting case which happened there. And we applied mitigations. We found the root cause. We fixed the root cause. We applied multiple improvements in the area. You know, whenever we find an issue, we try to also improve the overall situation. So also improve around the area where we found the problem and what else we can do to. And whenever there's a bigger issue which is impacting multiple users or different user groups, I'm asking the team to conduct a lessons learned meeting. If not, the members of the team already wish to do that. And so what we did there, let me show you, because it's visible in the ticket. Well, I reported a ticket, but we fill the content over time, and we are following a 5 why analysis, meaning that we are asking, let's say, top level to more detail, why that issue could have appeared, what could be one or multiple reasons, and then for each area trying to find some improvement. So what you can see here is, for example, the first question was like, why was nobody in the team aware of the issue before user report? That's commonly what we have when a problem is not shown by our automatic monitoring and alerting system, but somebody in a chat, like in that case in the SUSE Slack on September 4th, said like, hey guys, OpenQA doesn't run any jobs, but there are many scheduled. So nobody from the team has found that up to that point or seen it. That's actually quite likely to happen because, you know, there are many more users than we have members in the team, obviously, and also some start the work depending on their home time zone earlier than. So the first question was like, why didn't we see it then? Well, maybe the obvious answer is because we don't have any alerts, but the question is, what do we not have the alert for? So in that case, we don't have an alert for no jobs running when it's expected to have jobs running. And even if you find that, then it's important to find out like how do you properly design the monitoring data and the alert so that we are not receiving false reports. Because, you know, imagine the situation when there's simply no job scheduled for good reason, then also there should be no alert about that. But if there are many jobs scheduled but none are executed, then there's likely some problem that we want to look. So we identify tasks, like define an alert. We have ticket references for each of those improvement things. So one of them you can see here, that was already fixed. That was the optimized worker status update handling in WebSocket server, because I can tell you the root cause for the problem was we had too many workers. We had too many workers that were really eager to execute OpenGate tests, but there was simply the web UI being overwhelmed by the workers asking like, hey, do you have something to work for me? Like, you know, workers asking for jobs, and that overwhelming the central scheduler instance so much so that eventually it will not be able to assign any jobs to workers. So that was a fun thing. It was nicely, the root problem was nicely identified. So this was applied here and already fixed. And there are multiple other ideas where we don't have a resolution yet, or maybe in some cases we also didn't start. So let's see where else that related area shows up in that resolved list of results. But we are also working on some other areas, like for example, log proactively where wheel components are located. So wheels are the OS Ordnance plugin system. The idea is that big test distributions like OS Ordnance Distri can be better structured using such plugins, which are called wheels. And for those wheels, we are also trying to use and extend that feature on our own so that we provide a more streamlined and convenient user experience, and we extend the feature set around that. One other feature that we could solve is from an earlier bigger incident is that, you know, sometimes that's all things that we see on OpenKA SUSE VE, which is a very big OpenKA instance. So this is why those observations come from there, where we had very high response times, even coming to that the web UI doesn't respond to, you know, any of you trying to access the web UI, or scripts running into a timeout or telling you that the connection is rejected due to overload. And one feature that we want to implement, because we think that's a really simple and safe implementation, is to have a simple limit of jobs running concurrently in Open. So why have that? Well, because given the right credentials, like an API key and secret, an arbitrary number of workers can connect. And that also makes sense because the workers might be able to work from different locations, provide redundancy, provide different worker classes for different architectures and such. But if all of those workers would like run jobs at the very same time, then maybe you're simply overloading again the central point where you need to upload results, like, you know, the storage system when jobs finish. So this is why we implemented that simple limit of jobs running, so that also uploading results, which also happens while jobs are running, not just at the end, do not overload the target storage system. Okay. And then a spike solution, filter OpenKA to-do jobs on /test belonging to one review squad. I guess many of you know the notion of a review squad, because as a SUSE QA engineer, we structure the work in squads, and the squads also do open some of them or many of them to a test review. And so we wanted to come up with in a Spike solution, so it's just a prototype, yet a way to filter, do jobs on /test, also like /test overview by squads, on not necessarily by job group, result architecture and such, but by squad. So how would that work and such? We explored those ideas. And as a follow-up of that Spike, we selected tasks into the extended backlog, so something that we plan to work on in the near future to actually properly implement, so that you can also use it on a production. Questions about any of those feature requests so far? Nope. Okay. Then regression and crashes. Yeah, you see those two are related to OpenQA and OpenQA test, the test suite that is running on OpenQA open source org to use OpenQA to test OpenQA itself. And there, well, you can imagine from time to time something changes, which needs us to adapt the web UI, or we find problems in there which might be OpenQA regressions, or they're rather something maybe pointing out to a problem in our infrastructure, or some flaw in the test distribution of OS ordinance itself. Then something related to version updates and such, and also only 1 or 2 jobs running on OSD for several hours. That's related to the lessons learned meeting, because it was very similar or the same that, you know, there are many jobs scheduled, but none are executed for not any worker. In the section, then there's the section of blank, meaning not a category, but you can see from the project what it had been, where this came from. So, for example, also this one means long job age and jobs not executed for long. You can see it as a duplicate, or it's very related to what I just said, that, you know, there are many jobs and they're not executed. Then we can also see that, for example, for S390, many jobs were scheduled for long and couldn't be worked on. That wasn't, well, of course, it was also linked to that, because in general, the job queue was increasing in size, where more people could see the effect also on other specific areas. And even though the original problem was fixed, then we still had that problem for S390. And here, the causes for that were actually also in multiple areas. So, for example, there was a bit of a limit in the web UI, how it would be able to handle things. This is why I used a new feature to limit the number of jobs running concurrently. This is why the S390 jobs were also delayed for long. So that was resolved, and that was actually the only real solution in that ticket itself. But related, we came back to the request to the testing squads to make use of a generic S390 KVM class. And then again, while this is being worked on, then yeah, of course, there can be problems which are specific to the individual instances there, based on what hypervisor OS version they run, where they run, and what next? Well, often there are problems in the infrastructure and the network which are not directly within our control. For example, there was an outage of registry of SUSE org. There was a problem with the DNS server. You can see that also Rectables was down. GitLab CI jobs are unable to reach other services. Also, that one was related to something out of our control, so that's always a problem hindering our work. And in some cases, you see the effect. In some cases, it's behind this. Bare metal control OpenQA worker in Nuremberg 2. You know, we are still in the phase of data center migration out of the original SUSE Nuremberg 1 data center to various other places. And one of those is Nuremberg 2, the new office location of SUSE. And we want to have that architecture where we are not relying on a single location, but we have a geo redundancy built into the ecosystem around, in particular, OpenQA SUSE. And for that, we need to cover different architectures. We need to cover different worker classes and demands like bare metal testing. And that's why there was a need to have a bare metal control worker in Nuremberg 2 that's able to control physical machines in both Nuremberg 1 and Nuremberg 2. And that was done. By the way, related to that, there are also other teams. I reached out for help, and thank you to all who helped there to bring up additional workers like for Hyper-V, VMware, Zen testing, bare metal, ARM bare metal, and all. Phoenix?
Just a quick question, Oli. Why does this need to be bare metal?
You mean the OpenGA installation one?
No, you said that you needed to set up OpenQA worker in order to control bare metal workers.
Yes.
And I wonder why the control worker also needs to bare metal, or did I got that wrong?
No, actually, it doesn't need to be bare metal. You're right, because when you're controlling a bare metal machine, you don't need to run something like QEMU, so you don't need that high performance demands, right? You're just needing to encode the video and push through some text back and forth. So a VM could do that. Actually, I don't know the details in that ticket, but what I can tell you is that right now we do have, I think, only well, we have physical hosts, so we have bare metal installations where we run QEMU jobs on, right? And those workers commonly, they have enough capacity to not run more QEMU jobs, but what they have as capacity is to run additional bare metal control workers on, so that you have that mixture of, maybe the QEMU jobs need more storage and need more RAM, and then the bare metal control workers on the very same physical machine, they can make more use of the free CPU availability. Make sense?
Sorry, I'm muted. Yes, somehow it makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Right. So yeah, that one was actually, it looks like an issue from random infrastructure, but it's actually related to changes in the network that had been done. So you might know, you might remember that there was, or there still is, a QA SUSE domain. That one is currently still served from a physical machine in Nuremberg 1, which we want to decommission. And we are going to replace that by, well, in that case, virtual machines, which are maintained by SUSE IT engineering infrastructure. And they have their Git repository with salt recipes, which we are contributing to and controlling and contributing DNS, DHCP, and Pixie related changes to for the various new network domains like Nuremberg 2 Franken Campus Basement, as well as Prague 2, as well as Prague Office, and as well as a new zone QA SUSE that should take over the old one. But let's say the migration had there was one like mistake done in the migration. That is why there was an unexpected DNS outage. What else? Then, yeah, there was bigger multi-machine test issue. And you can see this is one ticket related to that. There are others around, like this one here. I guess also, yeah, never mind. There were more tickets around that area of multi-machine test issues, and um, that was also related to bringing in new machines. The interesting thing there was that new machines from Prague 2 data center were set up, and they were working fine. They were properly verified with multi-machine tests, including cross-worker multi-machine tests using retunnels and such. And then after some weeks, something was lost in particular in IP forwarding, and then those jobs were failing for a long time, and people had a hard time to look into that issue in time and find out what the real cause was. And of course, as always, when we have an issue like that, then we want to improve further in that direction. So we're not just looking at applying a single fix, but trying to improve the situation for the future. So keep that in mind. I will mention some tasks in the backlog for things that we plan to work on. Yeah, then some things like ensure IPv6 is working in the OSD setup, because it wasn't always thought from the beginning to have proper support for that. So with building the new infrastructure, we also worked with other people and motivated other people to help us there to really have a proper IPv6 capable setup, which in the end turned out to show to uncover other new problems, because then, well, when you're connected over VPN and you don't have IPv6 properly forwarded over the VPN, but you have IPv6 at home and IPv6 in the target system, then you might not be able to reach servers. So what else? Yeah, checking some cables. I mean, yeah, that will be what we do. Another one important that I would like to mention is gradually phase out Nürnberg 1 based OpenQA workers. So just yesterday, we cleaned out one complete server room in Nürnberg 1. So all machines from there are now not reachable anymore, and they will move to various different locations. And in preparation of that, I wanted to make sure that we gradually phase out OpenGA workers in particular that are running from all those server rooms in Nürnberg 1. So step by step prepared for the physical. So much about the resolved task. Any questions or additions to the resolved things? Okay, so let's go to the next. The next one that I would like to show is the top level view. That one currently shows 2 sagas. So commonly we had more here, but I will come to that. Bigger focus should go towards those 2 areas. And one is the QE setup in Prague 2 and Nuremberg 3. So those are the important new data centers that will dictate our work for the next works still. And I mentioned many tasks related to that. So cleanup things, migration things, preparation things, as well as unexpected regressions coming out of that, because always some changes, and changes cause problems from time to time. So we need to correct those problems. And the second saga is full version control awareness. Related to that is what I mentioned about wheels. We want to improve the usability and the feature set of this feature so that more and more OpenGA tests can be coming from a single Git repo without going through some hoops and workarounds in OpenQA. I mean, of course, most of the things are stored in Git somewhat, but they might come from different places, going over different ways and some kind of workarounds and inefficient implementations. We want to make that a first-class citizen. Why are there only 2 sagas? The main reason is because we split the backlog. So in before, the distinction that we made is to say, well, there's the target version ready. Ready means that we plan to work on that within the next time. And then there's future, simply means we don't plan to work on that the next. And some of you and some of our stakeholders were asking me about an outlook a bit further into the future. They want to know when they can expect us to work on certain things and what is our plan. And on the other hand, I could see that the tools team was a bit overwhelmed with the size of the backlog, in particular because we selected a size around 100, so 100 tickets, and that turned out to be too much for the people to keep in their mind and to be able to follow. We have the status dashboard, which we use in our daily work to guide us and to show if there are any limits exceeded. You can see it's all green because we commonly take a look every day, even multiple times. And what you see is a change here. So the overall backlog is now much smaller, actually less than half of the original size, and we have a limit of less than 65. So that means that simply the thing that we want the team to focus on is easier to grasp. With 43 tickets, it's much more likely that people of the team say like, oh yeah, I remember we talked about this in our last estimation call. I know what to work on and I know where the priority is. But of course, 43 tickets is not going far enough into the future for the stakeholders to know when they would expect us to work on a certain feature or a bug fix and such. This is why we have next. You can see overall, both of those numbers combined is actually a little bit above the former limit, the former hard limit of 100. So it does go back further into the future. So let's start with the overall backlogs so that you get a glimpse into here. So what we have is 10 tickets in feedback. So this is about to come. I mentioned the problem that OpenQA SUSE was overwhelmed. Too many workers connecting at the same time. And one workaround that we applied before we could fix the actual problem was simply, if too many workers overload the system, then reduce the number of workers. And that's what we did. So we on purpose switched off some of the new machines which we want to have in, but we are slowly and carefully bringing them in one by one. Combined with the other issue about multi-machine test issue means that we are extra careful in that direction as well. Bring in a new worker, check that it's stable for multi-machine tests, also crossing models. So that's what we work on. It's in feedback because whenever we do a little change, we're also waiting for the recording feedback. The feedback could come from users, it could come from alerting, or it could come from monitoring to monitor how that behaves. As ways take some time. There's a salt upstream bug, so that sometimes some of the machines that we control with salt are not responding anymore. And it was previously blocked by the upstream bug, but there was a nice suggestion in there to try out a new version. So that's what we are doing. And with feedback, like, over the weekend, I would check if after the weekend all machines are still responsive, then I can say with good confidence that the new is good. So then you see those are tasks which are all related to data center migrations. There are new S390 mainframe capacities in Prague 2 that we want to use so that we can finally not rely anymore on the still Nuremberg 1 based S390 resources. Move of selected machines Nuremberg 1 to Nuremberg 3. Just yesterday we hacked all those machines and prepared them for being moved over to Nuremberg 3. And of course, when they reach there, we want to make sure that they reach the proper place, that they are stored or used as planned, and that our inventory management system is up to date. We have workers that we also move to other locations where we want to actively use them. Like one is the, well, that one is actually an older ticket. So we had a problem with 1 power 8 machines used for OpenGA, OpenSUSE.org. And finally, after around 1 year, we managed to get access back and we managed to replace a broken storage controller, and soon it will be back in. There are some former workstations that we want to repurpose so that the lab is free to pick up additional capacity. So, currently in progress. Test fails in SCSI clients. That's well related to us bringing in new machines, but also related to multi-machine test failures. So, you see the relation. We had recently a problem with a new version of Pol Modulicious deprecating a method called SPIRT. You might have seen errors related to that. And we want to come up with a way of how we, as downstream users of that library, can in future, if that library or another deprecates another method, how we would be able to more gracefully handle such deprecation. In Workable, we have 11 tasks in Workable. From the top, incorrect behavior for group flavor. So that one was already around. And then recently we found one issue on the QM dashboard, which seems to be like the same, regarding the same request, regarding the same error report, but with higher significance. So this is why we managed to pick it up now. I mentioned QA SUSE domain. So we want to use an engineering infrastructure maintained DNS server for that, taking over from QANet, the physical machine. We have an O3 machine that is in Franken campus basement that could be connected to O3 again. We have some alert reaction in regarding OSD as well as in the build system. That one is related to multi-machine test failures in the documentation. There are some instructions which do not work, taking that over one by one. So, well, that can always happen with documentation, that depending on the, a new OS version behaves slightly different. And this is why the goal here is to have better updated, checked, and at best automatically verified documentation. And filter OpenK to-do jobs and /tests belong to one review squad. So that's a follow-up of the Spike solution that I mentioned. Oh yeah, and one more. Support move of S390 mainframe to Prague 2, but for O3. So OpenK. There is one organizational change, so not a technical change, which is I would like to have separate service level objectives and service level agreements, in short SLOs and SLAs. Meaning right now, that's what you can also see in the backlog. We say that our objective, and this is what you can expect, is that for an immediate ticket, we react at least within the day. For an urgent ticket, we react at least once within a week. For high, within a month, and for normal, within 1 year, like picking up a ticket. But I think we can do better, and we can aim internally to do something like within the team, we ensure with an according process that we update an urgent ticket every day, even though to the outside we have the promise or like the agreement that we would react within 1 week. So it giving us some hysteresis, some grace period to handle internal processes. And then there's one new which popped up. Lots of email from Switch about OpenQA worker. Yep, I can understand that because the OpenQA worker arm, they were just switched off and now our alerting things like, oh, I can't reach the machines. I need to switch them on again. And that was about the backlog. Any questions or additions or comments about the current backlog? Okay. So what comes after the backlog, or whenever there there needs to be new tasks pulled into the backlog, that is when we take a look into the next query. So in the next query, then so what is next? That means target version QA tools next. And what do we have in here? We have 63 tickets. Some of them are already workable, which means we already estimated them. Most of them we estimated because previously, originally they had been in the backlog. So we tried to estimate all of those tickets. And we needed to move them out of the backlog again due to, some reactive work or change of plans and so on. And also sometimes it really helps me if we estimate something in the team, and that gives me a better feeling of how we can work on things and maybe where something is a better candidate to be delayed, instead prioritize another one. But I think there had also been some cases where we managed to estimate all the tasks in the backlog, so we looked into tasks in the next query already. But there are also some things in new meaning we didn't estimate them. So one, for example, I can mention identified and upgrade all machines within our domain to support it up-to-date OS. That means that related to the data separation, we also inherited some from other teams. And well, for every machine that is actually running, we need to ensure that they have a proper, secure, up-to-date operating system. And for some, we know explicitly what we want to do, which is for the OpenGA machines. For example, upgrading all O3 workers to Leap 15.5 and upgrading all OSD workers and upgrading the O3 Web UI host and the OSD Web UI host and the CI container and the QM hosts maintained by us and all other LSGQE salt controlled machines also. Yeah. So yeah, that should be done. And the end of life for Leap 15.4, I think, is in November. So 1 month from now, or let's say 1.5 months from now. So that's why it's coming up next. Also, there are still some machines in Nuremberg 1 which should go to Prague 2, which there was a first wave planned and a second wave planned. And that's so, it's all according to plan that there's still some machines around. The main reason is that in Prague 2, the target location is not fully ready yet. So this is why that move was delayed a bit further so that we have less downtime for you for machines here. So where would that impact you, for example, for Zen testing? However, that's also being worked on. So maybe already since yesterday or today, we do have capable machines taking over for Zen testing, so that maybe you wouldn't even feel the impact there. Yeah, but it also involves other QE machines which are not OpenQA. So depending on where you individually rely on those, there might be a downtime. Enable slow roll tests. So you might have heard about the various announcement in that direction, that slow roll could be one potential successor. And I would like our team to look into helping to enable tests, at least supporting them. Not necessarily writing new tests, but just enabling the existing tumbleweeds tests or use slow roll. Then some reactive word or alert handling or bugs where maybe we found mitigation, or maybe it's a sporadic issue that happens very seldomly and the workaround is down there. And then more about multi-machine tests to conduct a lessons learned about what happened there and why did it happen, and also extend the documentation in setting up as well as debugging issues. This one I think is also related to multi-machine tests, where we have some ideas noted down in tickets, and then I would like them to have moved to the documentation, because otherwise it would be nearly impossible to find those cool ideas again in a older closed resolved ticket. Right? Yeah, more SV90 and monitor number of uploading jobs in Grafana, again related to not enough jobs being picked up, where we also want to take a look. It is related to the not enough number of jobs being picked up, as well as unresponsive web UI, and we want to follow our hypothesis that, well, the bottleneck is I/O of storage behind. So we expect that actually the number of jobs uploading at the same time could be a problem. There's also a specific uploading step, which might take long, and sometimes you ask us sometimes like, hey, why is this job not finished? It's running, it doesn't show anything on the display anymore, nothing on the live view, and yeah, it's uploading since like 1 or 2 hours. Yep, that could be. I think that could help. So that's it with the next issues as well. So when would we work on that? Well, something like, let's say, the next weeks to months, but possibly we never know. There could also be issues in here where eventually we need to decide that we will not work on those at all. That could happen as well. All right. So questions or additions to the next backlog or in general? Nothing? Okay, cool. So I'm done. Is there anything else by you? Then we are done with the roadmap presentation. Then I would like to invite you for the next week, where I would like to talk to you about statistics. Of course, the relation is to tests. I would like to mention some basics, how to apply statistics for sporadic issues and test instabilities. Statistical investigation tools, practices there, mean and standard deviation, and also rule of 3, maybe some other ideas there. I would be happy to see you there. And until then, thank you for attending, and yeah, goodbye.